Senator from Montana is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today in support of the Great American Outdoors Act. After yesterday's vote, where we voted to move to debate this bill at an 80-17 margin, it felt good. It felt good because some of us have been fighting this fight to fully fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund in particular for more than a decade. It's a program that Senator Udall explained yesterday that has worked out so very, very well since his dad introduced it back in the 60s. But the Great American Outdoors Act does more than just permanently funds the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. It also puts money into our Park Service and areas around our parks that are so important for this country. Really, the park system is one of the jewels of this nation. President Teddy Roosevelt was truly a visionary. At a time when there were plenty of wild places in this great nation, he had the good sense to preserve some of them for future generations because he knew they wouldn't have been around, they won't be around forever. And quite frankly, the National Park System encompasses 419 parks, more than 84 million acres, including 2 crown jewels in Montana, Yellowstone, and Glacier National Park. These are places where Americans come together and experience the scale of America's natural beauty. However, I will tell you in recent years, we, Congress, has not lived up to President Roosevelt's legacy, and our parks have been left to fall in disrepair. Even as we've seen record numbers of visitors each year, the United States Congress has failed to make parks a priority and even make investments in them. So the Great American Outdoors Act will go a long ways to correcting Congress's neglect. In fact, it invests $9.5 billion in deferred maintenance on public lands across our country. Those are not only our national parks, but the areas around our national parks, preserving the legacy of America's great outdoors for generations to come. And while this is very, very important, this investment in our national park system, the first part of this legislation, we also need to know that we have places in this country, ecosystems in this country that will not be around for future generations if we don't preserve them today. And that is where the Land and Water Conservation Fund comes in. The LWCF is the most important conservation tool we have at the federal level. Nothing else comes close to it. It was founded 5 decades ago, and Montanans have used about $540 million for this fund to increase outdoor opportunities on our public lands around our state. We have used it to preserve tens of thousands of acres of world-class elk habitat in central Montana. It has been an essential driver of Montana's growing $7 billion a year outdoor recreation economy. And it has established city parks and open spaces in our more urban communities in Montana. And the best of it all is it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime because the Land and Water Conservation Fund, as it was set up, was to take money from offshore oil gas revenue. Well, that hasn't worked out so well. So today we're just saying it's going to be funded, and it's going to be funded permanently going into the future. But the LWCF is a no-brainer. It has overwhelming benefits. For states that the investments are made for pennies on the dollar, we're receiving jobs and we're receiving quality of life. We're receiving the ability to go out and hunt and fish and hike on our public lands. Unlike no other country in the world, we have these areas where you don't have to be a millionaire to be able to go out and enjoy the outdoors. But these victories did not happen magically overnight. The fact is we worked long and hard with local conservation groups and public land enthusiasts around the country to build support where it never existed before. And our years of work finally broke the dam earlier this year when President Trump and Senator McConnell reverse their opposition to this legislation because of overwhelming bipartisan momentum that we've built on the ground. I welcome their change of heart, and I know it didn't come easy. There are so many Montanans and folks around the country that I want to thank for putting in the work and bringing my colleagues from darkness to light. Your work has inspired me, and it inspires future generations that we're going to benefit from your selfless efforts. I was at home last night and I got a text message from one of those folks that said, "Thank you. Thank you for your hard work for the last 13 years on LWCF." I sent him back a text that said, "I don't deserve the thank you, you do." Because quite frankly, there have been folks that have been working on this much longer than I. But now, since the vote yesterday, the clock is ticking. Every day we are losing ecosystems in this country, and because of our tardiness in fully funding Land Animal Conservation Fund, we have lost plenty of those ecosystems over the last 10 years, and we will lose even more if we don't get this funded. The future of our nation's wild places hang in the balance, and we have something to do about it this week. We can fix it. So I would urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to vote yes on the Great American Outdoors Act so we can preserve our public lands for future generations, for our kids and our grandkids, just as that visionary President Teddy Roosevelt did for us. Madam President, I yield.